We are talking about the slasher home invasion movie, He's Out There. This one is directed by Quinn Lasher and written by Mike Scannell, and it stars Yvonne Strahovski, who you may know from TV's Chuck. She's been in a bunch of things. Australian actress who now primarily works in the US. And she is a mother of two young girls. She plans to go and have a kind of a vacation in this kind of like this summer home. And her husband is kind of following behind, but he's slightly delayed because he has work commitments. So it's just the kind of the mother and these kind of two young girls initially going out there. However, they are soon menaced by this kind of masked sort of serial killer slasher, for lack of a better word, who seems to be intent on torturing this family along with anyone else who kind of shows up. So the actual plot itself is fairly humdrum. It's not really anything original, but the actual production value and the actual way it's filmed is slick, and it feels like you're watching a well-produced and confidently made movie. So I would say on the plus side here, you look like you're watching a quality production. It doesn't seem kind of like a rushed, no-budget film. The actors here are all pretty good. I do want to address something that I've been reading about this movie. Now, I've read a couple of reviews about this before I did my one, and by far and away, the biggest criticism I have seen in this film from other reviewers has been, quote-unquote, the annoying kids. But I will actually defend that, because to me, they are young kids. They are like 7 and 9, and they're screaming, they are panicking, they're not making good decisions, but they're acting like real kids would do in that situation. I get the impression that a lot of these kind of reviews are maybe sort of by young teenagers or young adults who haven't had a lot of experience with kids perhaps, but to me, I actually thought the kids did a great job in regard to the acting, because they really do seem like real kids and how real kids would react. I mean, they're just panicking. They don't want to move. And it just seems bizarre to me that people are going, oh, I wouldn't do that. It's just like, well, you're not a 9-year-old girl who's got a masked serial killer running after her. So it bothered me that those kind of, they were on there, a lot of reviews for that. But to me, it was just like, okay, it's a fair, I mean, yeah, they might grate on your nerves, but they're not, you've got to understand that stuff. That's probably what would happen. I much prefer a realistic take on how people react rather than the kind of the typical issues that I have with Hollywood films where they have people acting in an unrealistic way. However, this movie is guilty of that as well, which we'll come on to. But anyway, I actually quite like the girls. I thought the guy, the masked serial killer, is very sinister. He looks cool, and he has a kind of a sinister sort of game that he plays where he's kind of making cupcakes and stuff like that, and for their kids, and sort of like try and kind of get them out in the woods and things like that. Thought he was quite good. He's giving a very brief backstory, but yeah, in the actual there's some fairly kind of good gore shots here. It's not particularly gory. The body count is relatively low, but nonetheless, when we see it, I think it's suitably kind of graphic and kind of disturbing. And I actually thought that all the cinematography, the sound design was all good here. Everything's well lit, so the production value was high. So what didn't work for me, a couple of bits with the script foremost for me. The film is very generic. I mean, it's just like a slasher home invasion, but there's no real originality in this whatsoever. Even the kind of the mask, it kind of looks like the mask from Nightbreed, I've got to say, the Clive Barker movie. So even the killer doesn't look particularly kind of original. And I had some issues with some of the kind of the logic in this film as well. So I'll point two things out. So for me, this killer, when we kind of first see, he basically tempts these girls out by having like this piece of string with kind of that leads him out into the woods, and in the middle of the woods he's kind of set like a tea party out with cupcakes. So I'm thinking, okay, so this is a masked lunatic that we've been told in some exposition. Are we saying he's been there in the kitchen making cupcakes? Because he must have done. If you see the film and there's something in the cupcakes, he must have done. They're not shop-bought ones. So you've got to imagine there's scenes of him in the baking, mixing the flour and all of this. Has he got his masks on and he's cleaning up? And where's he been doing it? I mean, it's a little bit silly. It's always a thing like I see where, when killers kill someone, there's no blood, and think, are they getting they're wiping the floors down and all of this? Silly. And then the other thing is as well, Yvonne Strahovski's character, I can now pronounce her name, she takes an axe wound to her abdomen, but she's able to then fight off someone. I mean, and then she's been bleeding out for hours as well. She'd be dead. She would be dead. I think it was ridiculous she was able to come back and get into a physical fight with a man, basically. So that was ridiculous. To be honest with you, when that happened, and I know that's a little bit of a spoiler, but I have to address it. It was just like, come on. I mean, that's just ridiculous. An axe swing at full pelt into the kind of like the abdomen. Did be a gap, you know, a gap that big. No way is she. I mean, if she did survive, she'd be barely alive. So that again, it's just kind of. Although I like the fact that the kids were kind of portrayed as being quite realistic, there's some unrealistic stuff in here. So yeah, a mixed bag in regards to that. But it's the ultimate thing. It's just probably very generic. You know, there's nothing really kind of outstanding here in regards to any type of plot development or anything like that. But it's a well-made film. It's entertaining. The villain looks bad. The acting is all good. All the kind of the visuals all look good. So realistically, I'll give it a 6 out of 10. I do think it's above average, and it's probably worth it. You enjoy it, but you're probably not going to remember it. Let me put it like that. So 6 out of 10 for me. Have you seen it? What did you think of it? Leave me a comment, and I'll look forward to seeing you next time. Bye for now.